Now, when we talk about apartheid South Africa and we talk about Nelson Mandela, when was the first time, obviously, that you found out how great this man was, or in fact found out that there was a great man called Nelson Mandela?
Growing up, there were plenty of songs about Nelson Mandela. You know, I when I was born, all there was apartheid. So that was a way of life. So this was normal for me as a child. But I remember the songs that were sung. They really were smart in preserving the history of what had happened. So through these songs, through these uprising songs, I got an understanding of how South Africa was in the situation.
Right.
And I got an idea of who Mandela was. And I mean, you know, as I said, living in an apartheid environment was like the norm. You know something was wrong with it, but that's all you ever known. However, when Nelson Mandela was released, you could feel a different kind of energy in the country. There was a very profound change. There was an excitement. It was actually mind-blowing. And I think at that moment did I understand how vital this man was to the country. His release marked the release of the freedom for the whole country.
So it made a marked freedom. Did you ever have any recollections of what it was like during apartheid? I mean, sure. Okay, so some of I remember just the toying, as it were. As a child, I mean, we would just kind of go with the crowd. Along.
But I've inhaled plenty tear gas in my youth.
Right.
I've seen cops beat up people plenty of times, and I just remember how we were taught, for example, not to make eye contact with white people because you don't want to cause trouble. So we would be very meek in our behavior. You know, you'd always keep your head down. If a white person was coming towards you, you move out of the way and get out of trouble. And there's certain areas you would never find us. Never mind even going to certain parts at night. So as children, we were trained for survival mode.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had to follow the past laws and everything like that.
Well, I mean, by the time I was born, they had done away with them. But the effect of apartheid meant that we were totally segregated. We were less. We were the lesser people. So you could see that in so many ways. And so as children, you also fall in line with that kind of behavior. So confidence-wise and just, you lived in fear, you know. And only when we were in the townships was there a sense of freedom amongst the people, you know. And there were a lot of people that were doing things to defy the system, you know. So of course there were shebeens, and I remember there was just plenty of music that would always bring people together. So in the townships it was wonderful because people would always create fun.
For those that don't know, shebeen is a
shebeen. It's an informal drinking bar. Or bar, that's right.
Based in a home.
In a home.
Right.
Absolutely. And I mean, sometimes they would have police raids, and the children, the young boys, were actually children more than anything, would use sticks to hit the corrugated iron that we used as roofs to make noise. That's how you knew the cops were around. And as children, we would be literally, you were just trained to find a space to hide.
To disappear.
And but that was the order of the day.
Okay, now fast forward 18 years later, South Africa is free. You have the first black president and 3 others after that, 2 others actually. How is it like?
Right now, it's actually incredible, the energy that exists in the country. There are great opportunities. There's certainly, I mean, there's a sense of freedom in that we can go anywhere we want. There's been a huge rise of middle class, black middle class, and even upper class. So a lot more people are employed, a lot more people are educated. So for me, I think the excitement that I find, especially with my generation, is that initially some of our difficulties that we experienced during the transition was that suddenly we were free, but we didn't know how to be free.
Right.
You know, we were ill-equipped.
Like the caged bird, when you open the door, sometimes
you haven't learned how to fly.
Right.
So some of the challenges that I feel some of my or even the younger generation coming after us is that there's a little bit of apathy,
right,
and just not being able to engage, not being able to take on these opportunities and run, but they're really massive opportunities available to us. And I think what's also exciting for me is that it's not just in South Africa or in the African continent, but it's also linking up with the rest of the world. So I feel it's an exciting time. There's an exciting sense of self-expression.
Right.
We're doing it through music, through fashion, through art, and we're exporting a lot of what we do. Classic case being the 46664 fashion line. It's made in Africa and it's inspired by Africa. Now we're taking it to 23 countries by next year.
Right.
That's exciting. That's something we can be proud of. Because I think that the biggest challenge for Africa is carving its space and changing the face of how Africa has been seen in previous years. So now we are also finding a space where we're shaping who we are and presenting that to the world.
Making a statement.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about your music.
Yes.
We'll start off by the name Lira. You were obviously not born Lira. You were Lerato and Molapo.
That's right.
Okay, so where did this name Lira come from?
It's derived from Lerato, Lira. It's inspired by that, and
because the only Lira I'm aware of was the old
the
Italians.
currency, the Turkish lira still exists.
You've been making trips to Italy
that's
a lot,
right.
yeah,
Yeah,
and they love you there. So I was trying to figure out what the connection.
Oh no, that was just pure chance with that. But in terms of just creating a stage persona, if you will, it was really, for me, a coping mechanism for this industry. I think it can be incredibly demanding, and I think I was a little concerned of just losing my sense of self in there. So I just felt it's just literally a mental coping mechanism to be able to step into the world of Lira and know that I could also step out, and just become Lerato. So.
You were educated. You're an economist.
Accountant, yeah.
Actually. So how did you then end up as a musician, a singer?
I worked for about 2 years in a corporate environment, and I just wasn't fulfilled, to be quite honest. And I remember I was sitting with my regional managers who had just given me the great news that I've got, that I was promoted. And I looked at this and I thought, I don't want to end up like you. Somehow this whole world was just depressing to me. And
even behind a big desk and a nice big office.
I just, there was nothing really meaningful or appealing to me, and it depressed me greatly because I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm destined to become. And then I thought, well, if this is not working for me, then what do I have in mind in terms of fulfillment? And the only thing I could associate with fulfillment was music, because I sang throughout college. So I thought that would be the first place to look for a sense of meaning in life. And that was 11 years ago when I made that move.
You were influenced by the Motown greats, and Gladys Knight, Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, I think, and Anita Baker, all those. But how then did you end up singing the kind of music? What do you call your music?
It's Afro Soul.
Afro Soul.
It's Afro Soul. It's very much influenced by American soul acts, like you said, but it's really our interpretation of that kind of music, and the Afro element is brought on by the fact that we use African languages, and it's not just me. It's literally. There's a few artists in South Africa that sing this type of music, but it's really just influenced by some global trends. But there are jazz undertones in there. There's R&B. There's soul. There's some African elements in terms of the music, but definitely the use of African languages as well.
Okay, so when was the big break? I know that you tried for these Coca-Cola on the road, what do you call it, Road to Fame competitions?
I did not, I'm afraid.
Oh, you were late.
I didn't.
You were late.
I was late for these things, I think.
And you,
I never even got into the industry that way. These were some of the possibilities that were there, but I didn't even get a chance to even try out.
Then you had a group called Ecstasy.
Wow.
That was the
good
beginning.
research.
Okay, so tell us about ecstasy and how you then eventually ended up to where.
This was way before the drug existed.
Right.
So I was 16 at the time, and I was still in high school. And this was also with this group. This was my first attempt at writing music, and we entered a competition that was called the Eastern Talent Show. That we certainly did, and this was in 1995, and we were competing against various kinds of genres and artists, and we won Best Vocalists, Best Composition, and Best Performance, and that was very affirming to me. That was, I think, the first time I realized that I really did have a knack for this.
Okay, now talking about awards and all that, can you break it down for us, because there've been so many over the years, and you know, you have platinums, you have the summer awards, you have all these. Can you just
Sure.
give us
Since 2006, I've won 9 South African Music Awards. Those are like our Grammy equivalent in South Africa. So I've won two times Best Female, Best Global Charts DVD Album of the Year, Best Remix. So all in all, it's 9 awards. And then I've won Most Stylish Fashion Icon.
Obviously.
I've also won another award called the Style Award. And I think one of my most proudest ones is I was given this by the Student Sponsorship Program as a role model. And then also a charity one for being the biggest fundraiser. So
good.
Those are really special to me.
So I know that you've been in the States on a project. You're going to release a DVD of live music, and I've actually seen one of your first DVDs that you did. Tell us about this current one.
In the States, for about, I think, 10 days ago, I released my debut album, Rise Again. It's available on iTunes. So I'm very excited about that. And then in South Africa, on Monday, in fact, I released my second live DVD, and it's also Africa's first concert film.
Right.
Very excited about that. And it's really, I wanted to capture the relationship that I have with my fans. And I wanted to give people the perspective that, or at least being on stage and experiencing a whole ocean of people singing along to my music, just for people to get an idea of what that looks like from my perspective. It's very much focused on the fans and the relationship that I have between myself and my fans, and of course the effect that I've seen the music have on them. So it's definitely for the fans.
Okay, in the intro I talked about how you sang with Yuma Sekela during the 2010 World Cup, and at that time I think that's the first time I actually saw who you were, and like, this is what you look like. I'd heard that there's a new sensation called Lira, but on this part of the world we'd never seen Lira. So then a year later, I think you visited the States, and I came to watch you at SOBs. Can you tell us the experience of performing, you know, for millions of people with a great jazz musician, in fact world-known musicians like Yuma Sekela? How was that?
That was magnificent. You know, it was a very important event for South Africa, but moreover the African continent. You know, we got a chance to host the World Cup, and just having the world looking at us and having an opportunity to say, hi world, you know, this is who we are. So I could see the opportunity and the weight that came with. And so I was extremely excited and just deeply honored to have sung, also paid homage to Miriam Makeba, obviously, with Yuma Sekela as well. So, and you're very right, it was just very instrumental in just introducing me to the rest of the globe. Okay,
and then I think sometime last year you were here for when you became the ambassador for Audi. Tell us how that goes.
I've been the ambassador for Audi for the last 6 years, and that's been an incredible relationship. I've driven every single car across the fleet, so that's quite exciting. And yeah, it's just wonderful to associate with brands that I have great respect for, and I've always been an Audi fan, so it was wonderful when they.
So I believe that you brought a few keys for our staff, an Audi each.
I don't roll quite like that, but
But anyway, I think it's been great speaking to you.
Thank you.
Do we see any concerts in the future soon?
Absolutely. The best way to keep in touch with me is through Twitter and my website, which is www.misslira.com, which is MISSLIRA.com. And obviously my Twitter and Facebook links are also there. So I also have a iTunes and Android app, so just search for Lira and you can keep in touch with me.
Okay, cool. Viewers, that was Lira